Okay, good morning, everybody. Bright and early again. I've added one more on, and we'll talk about a couple others too. And I've had Senator Peters' HERO bill on. We'll do that at the end if we can get to it. Okay. Let's just go down the list. 81.
So Senate Bill 81 would require the Department of Transportation to start the process of beginning the Maryland Rapid Transit Project, the Southern Maryland Rapid Transit Project. I think this issue has been may have been addressed in one of the budget actions that happened yesterday.
Okay.
And so,
Do you want to talk about that for just a second?
sure. There was a restriction in the budget language for SHA yesterday that would basically fence off $5 million for this project, assuming this project gets the go-ahead from the federal build grant. So if the federal build grant doesn't come through, the $5 million would just be recycled into next year's SHA projects. But it fences off $5 million.
Right?
What's that?
House took this action too.
They did, Mr. Chair.
Okay. Sounds like a good solution. We can pass on the bill. No, we can pass on the bill. Now, we don't need to do the bill because it's been handled in the budget. Okay. At the risk of, should we get our heads more warmed up before we get into this next one? I don't know. 133.
So Senate Bill 133 was discussed a little bit earlier in the week. This one would allow the counties to go to a progressive income tax model. The amendments wouldn't allow the counties to go past the current 3.2% cap on the county income tax, but it would allow the counties to put in place a progressive income tax so they could tax income cohorts at different levels. There's an issue with the disparity grants because the disparity grants, when they were created, only took into account the idea that you would have a flat income tax rate at the county level. So the solution that was worked out was the disparity grants stay the same for anybody who has a flat income tax, but then creates a new subsection for counties that go to a progressive income tax, and it would allow them to get the full disparity grant even though all their rates aren't at the 3.2%. So it gives them a mechanism to still receive the disparity grant, even though they're using a progressive income tax.
Questions? Senator Young?
How is that affected? Do they get more? I don't know how the disparity works. Do they get more the higher it is or the lower it is?
So currently, the closer you get to 3.2%, the higher the enhancement that you can receive on the disparity grant.
Thanks.
Senator Eckert?
I talked to a couple of our counties, and because they're real involved with MACO. And was MACO part of the negotiation over the disparity grant, Matt?
Yes, MACO worked on the solution.
Okay, that's what I thought. So, I'm fine with it because I checked with our counties. Thank you.
Okay. Senator Rosenthal?
Yeah, I just want to say, the work that MACO did and that Matt did and others, basically all that amendment does is protect the disparity grants while we allow locals to go to a progressive income tax without raising the top rate above what it is before.
Very good. Is there a motion? All those in favor? And those opposed? 2. Quarterman, and Stalling. $199.
So Senate Bill 199 is the Maryland Transit Administration Funding Act, and this is the one that would take the concept of state of good repair and create a mandate for the Transit Administration, and basically require the identified need to be included in the budget each year. And the bill as it came in is fiscal year 23 through 28. We had discussed a little bit, the House has already taken action on this, and the House brought the amounts into line with what MTA has identified as their need and planned use in the next two fiscal years. So they amended the fiscal year 23 and 24 to bring it up to what MTA was saying that they had planned on spending on state of good repair. They also took it out to fiscal 29. I was told yesterday that the reason they went to fiscal 29 just was because this was a reintro, and so it went to 28 last year when it was introduced, and the intent was to have taken it out to 29 this year. They meant to push it out one more year. Senator Quarterman brought an amendment for the committee's consideration that would add a study requirement at the end of the bill. So look at, the idea is to run to take a look at a MARC light rail or a MARC rail service line that would go out to Western Maryland. I think it's just starting the planning stage of it, but it would force the study to happen and take a look at what that rail line might look like.
Just on the amendment, Senator McCray?
Just possible clarification. I'm sure that Mark and the other fiscal, I was also told that it was spread out and that the amount was reduced to kind of spread it out the extra year, so it was down to, I think, 450 or something.
Yeah, I actually asked that question before. Did you find out is it the exact same amount or a little less?
It's actually a little bit more, but I did ask, and the explanation I got was these are sort of maintenance costs that don't get identified to be included until they're about 2 years away from, because you don't know what maintenance you're going to need. So they were trying to, the 450 number that gets spread out, they were trying to ballpark what that was going to be, because they don't have good numbers until, because they're sort of maintenance projects, and you don't know what your need's going to be until you're a couple years away. So it's just too speculative to put those numbers in. That's the explanation I got.
Gotcha. On the amendment, anybody on the amendment? Senator Edwards, are you now?
Not on the amendment, on the
Okay.
bill.
Is everyone, any discussion on the amendment? Is there a motion?
Favorable.
All's in favor? On the amendment? No? Unanimous? Okay. So, okay. Senator Edwards, you still have a question?
I thought we just passed something on the Maryland Transit Administration. What different from this than what we passed the other day, or am I missing something?
I think this one was discussed the other day,
We
but
keep bringing this back up.
not acted on.
Or did we do something in the budget? Because I remember the 450 million commentary. It had 5 line items, and they kept it at 450 for the last 3 years. I know I didn't dream this.
That's what's in this bill.
So we just discussed this the other day. We didn't
We
pass.
did. We've discussed this a couple times. This has been up at
This
least
third-
twice before.
third time
3
the
times.
charge.
Senator McGray says, please pass my bill. It's up 3 times already. Anything further, Senator? Thank you. Senator Lecker?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would just, obviously like to commend my good friend and colleague, Senator McCray, but, this is a statewide bill that's going to have a positive impact for our roading infrastructure. So I'd move favorable on the bill.
Can we clarify we've adopted Senator Quarterman's amendment. There was some discussion about the House changing the numbers. Do we want to leave the mandated numbers at where they are where the bill was introduced, or would you like to consider going with the House
Senator
amendment?
McCray?
Move the first 2 years to where MTA has it in the CTP currently is what the House did for State of Good Repair.
Okay, and then the spread out?
And then moving it out to 1 more year. And this one thing
Yeah.
that I'm not sure this body has discussed once out of the third time that we're talking about it is what do we do about that amendment that they did for the purple line? I believe they put an extra thing in there for the purple line inside of the amended House bill. And obviously, this could be figured out at conference, but just.
Oh, that's right. There was that's correct. There's a Purple Line grant program that would
business
the House
grant?
added
For business grants?
Yeah, it's grants for businesses affected by the Purple Line construction. Fiscal 23 and 24 it would affect. It's about $1 million. It is $1 million each fiscal year.
I know that Senator Smith had this bill, I think, for a couple of years. And we never took an action on it, but Senator Edwards?
I do have another question. The Maryland Transit Administration, as my colleague from Montgomery said, this does then include the local transit system?
I believe so.
As defined in the law?
Yes. I'm not sure. I would have to check.
You mean all the local systems?
Yeah, there's you got
Well,
the
there's lots
last
of-
big transit, and then you got the local transit. And the local transit, my understanding, is under the Maryland Transit Administration. Yeah. So they would be eligible to get whatever transpires here. Is that a fair statement?
I'm waiting for an answer. Do you have another question? I mean, while we're waiting.
Yeah, I'd like to take the amendment from the House on the purple line businesses, Senator Smith's proposal.
So no, these would go, the money would be used for MTA transit, not anything, no money would be flowing to the locals for this. It would be going towards maintaining the state-owned MTA assets.
Only the state on it, because the way it is now, the state, the counties with the local transit request money from the state for projects, and the state then gives them money for projects.
Yeah, I don't believe this affects that scenario.
I mean, a lot of times they are sort of backbone pieces, right? The state, they are for my county at least, but we're obviously closer to the city.
Oh, no, excuse me. I found the provision. The bill may not be construed to limit the authority of the MTA administrator to use the available funds appropriated to MTA to increase state investment in locally operated transit agencies.
Hey, winner!
Not enough coffee yet. Sorry, Senator.
And there we have a winner. All right, Senator Young.
I'm all for supporting transit. I wish we had some up our way. And Senator Quarterman's study, unfortunately, they're probably going to do with your study what they've done with the one to Frederick. They do a cursory study and say it doesn't work, and they forget about it, because we've been pushing since the 1980s. That kind of backed off lately because we always get the same rejection. But my real question is, does anybody, as we award transportation money, keep any kind of a sheet to show what the projected income from all sources is, and where it's going to see how the proportions are changing as we make these adjustments. We say one Maryland, but I look at 3 miles of Route 15 through Frederick. That's a parking lot where 70 and 270 bleed together, and it stops. And I never, ever see that project getting anywhere near being corrected. And subject I brought up earlier about looking at separate streams of funding, but what I don't know is when we approve something like this, is it taking away from something else? Or how do the projections break out, revenue versus what's going to each thing? I never see anything like that. I never have seen anything like that. So while I want to, I'll vote for this and I want to award a good project, I'd like to know how it fits in an overall scheme of transit. And I've never seen that presented anywhere. Have any of you?
Senator?
And the good senator, right, but some of it can be viewed in the CTP in reference to like how they're projecting out from a short-term outlook for them 6 years. But like I said, I may not be hearing you right.
Yeah, I've seen numbers, but I've never seen that when we do this, it's changing the proportion of where it's going.
Senator, I tell you, at least from my perspective over the last couple of years, I think the problem in the whole system is that we've got some funding sources that are problematic.
Yeah.
And so I think answering a question is kind of tough considering a changing flow of resources from outside, right? So I'm not sure how you completely answer that question, other than I really sort of have taken this up a little bit. I know I've sort of alluded to it several times, but we've been doing a lot of work sort of behind the scenes. We've got to do something to increase revenues overall for everyone, for all sources within our transportation structure. We're going to have to make some tough decisions. I don't know if but we're not going to get to it this year.
All right, I know that too.
We may not get to it next year. Probably won't get to it next year, but we're going to it's got to be done. And there's a bunch of work going on behind the scenes because this is not sustainable. But it is something that it's just got to be done.
Well, that's a major concern I have, but the other one, without knowing, we see something that needs to be done, and we do it. But is it at the same time killing something else that needs to be done? And
Right.
there's got to be somebody should be keeping a balance somewhere, and that should be at the Department of Transportation.
It is. Yeah, I agree. It's their responsibility.
Right. Thanks.
Senator Zucker?
Thank you. I would just, add that part of the statewide appeal here is that, and it's not reflected in this bill because it's already part of the overall transit investment plan, would be investing a lot of money for the upgrades and renovations and upkeep of the Brunswick line, the MARC train. This is directly investing in that as well, and that obviously goes to Frederick and Western Maryland. So this is part of the reason why the senator and I worked on this last year, was because of the benefits that it would have in the complete crumbling of the infrastructure of MARC, which helps connect our regions. So even though it's not necessarily implied in this bill, but that's what the infrastructure piece is. That's the investment piece of it, is going after what's already crumbling infrastructure, and the Brunswick line, specifically for the MARC train, will be getting an investment of this funding. And on the other pieces, I've been in touch with Senator Smith and obviously Senator Rosapep, and there have been businesses that that have been impacted not only by what we're going through with the current economic climate, but also with the construction of the Purple Line. So I would be supporting, the House posture on the Purple Line.
Okay, well, let's take that for the moment. I'll take this as motion for that. All those in favor of the position on the businesses for along the Purple Line? Okay, it's unanimous. All right, so we got two amendments, or three, kind of, with the, yeah.
So, if I heard everything correctly, the committee would like to conform to the House bill plus the Senator Quarterman amendment.
Yes,
Okay.
that's correct. Further, Senator Eckert.
I know the department was concerned about flexibility. Has that been worked out in the bill or in the final negotiations? Was that able to be resolved with the department?
Aware of it, but the department in reference to the flexibility piece.
They were concerned that if we have another incident like we did with COVID, then they're going to be locked into something, and then it'll force layoff of people from their other business units because they don't have the flexibility to move money around for the project.
I hear you, Senator Eckert, but the department is also the same department that when we looked at the cuts that were coming to MTA from an operating and a capital standpoint, the department is also the ones that's trying to figure out this $2 billion deficit in reference to capital infrastructure and not taking the strongest position that they could always take on these types of things. So this is where the legislature is taking a step to kind of move them in the right direction. And every once in a while, we have to push them in the right direction. I looked at, there was a number of cuts that was taken from an operating standpoint. And as soon as they stated that revenues that came in from the airport and revenues that came in from the businesses, those regional leaders had came together to kind of help them make good decisions. So I think that sometimes the department does need to be pushed in that manner, and this is us helping to make sure that we express the legislative intent from that standpoint. But I understand what you're saying too.
Yeah, and I was just thinking in terms of, this, the news secretary has been very responsive and, in more ways than before, and flexible and bending, and I just think it's important to maintain that and not tie their hands too much. Thank you.
Senator, I mean, I know we're kind of in this awkward place where we don't know exactly the future, right? But I think most of the future we can point to that there are some good things coming. With the infrastructure bill that we're expected to see from the administration, the belief that I think we will take within the next couple of years some money action, some revenue actions. So, I mean, you put all that together and you try to project out, it seems to me that we're in a place where it will lend itself to the flexibility that you're talking about. I think we will see that as we move forward. Senator Rosenfeld?
Yeah, I was just going to agree with you, Mr. Chairman, and with the subcommittee chair and the sponsor. It is analogous to what happened to Metro. The reality is that, and we all know this, is the shiny new projects have a lot more excitement around them in terms of the engineers who are building them and designing them, and in terms of communities than keeping our existing assets up to par. And what we saw with Metro over a period of 10 years was a decline in ridership because the maintenance wasn't held up, and that's why we did what we did with Metro. And I just see this as doing for the MTA, including the local bus systems all around the state, what we did with Metro for a One Maryland approach to make sure that we're maintaining the assets we've invested in, even though it's not sexy, but it is important.
Okay. Senator Solon?
I had one part that I was kind of confused, but I read in more detail and kind of understand the expanding part of this and what Senator Rosenpep was just talking about, one thing we were looking into and what we've talked about is expanding more of an MTA in my area and trying to help out, like, for instance, Trade Point. But I'd like to see more opportunities statewide, like Senator Porterman was saying, in Western Maryland, they need more help out there, and I understand that. They want to expand more, and they want more opportunity for people to move about, and I understand that. I just don't want to stress that to miss out on other opportunities or miss out more that where we're doing projects right now, and I don't want to hinder them. You know, I don't want to say, okay, we need another project coming up, and I don't want to hinder them financially, but I understand in every point how important this is statewide. So I hope that made sense.
Yeah, I mean, it goes back to lending itself that we've got to really find some solutions in the future for revenues is the answer. I mean, we're going to get this interesting boost, whatever it's going to be from the federal government. That's going to be really helpful. It will also, in some ways, set up sort of a false narrative that things are going to be handled, and the answer is that they won't. It'll be good. Whatever it is, it's coming. It's going to be good. But we've also got to take matters into our own hands, and all of us, I hope, will come to a place where we can agree on what we're going to do in the future, because it does affect every part of the state. And you know, we've had to do these before, and with the gas tax, and there's been disagreement about those kinds of things in the past. In my opinion, I hope we can come to a place, as we do many, many times as a committee, to come up with the solutions for funding, because it's funding for the entire state. Senator Young?
Yeah, something that we can do, and I wish I were more of an expert at it, but from my past careers, I can tell you some things in terms of attitudes and laws that we need to look at changing, and not just revenues. I got together with Montgomery County, Frederick City, Frederick County, and the state back in the late 80s to do a study of extending Metro. At the time, the state was looking at bringing it up to Shady Grove, and then I was looking at bringing it on to Frederick. And that's fallen to the wayside. I was also on the 301 study group back in the 1995, 96. Spent tens of millions of dollars, and nothing ever happened. And we knew it wasn't going to happen. And, you know, working for the state at that time, I was in on some conversations from Highway where they said, hey, we'll study anything, we're just not going to do it. And a lot of projects came up like that where they put money in the budget to study it, saying right then they had no intention of ever doing it. But they have been hampered by some things too. Worked on a project once that a minor thing needed to be corrected, and minor in their terms is a lot different. It could have been corrected for $10 million by doing a simple local road to connect two things, but they said, we can't, that's not in our purview, we can't do that. So their solution was going to cost $25 million, which they said we can do. So they said they were inhibited and that they couldn't do the $10 million improvement because it involved local roads, but they would do the $25 million one. And also, I mentioned the 301. The governor moved me over to do smart growth for him. And so I went off of that. But they were looking 25 years ago at spending $3 billion. They said the estimate to correct the problems on 301 was $3 billion. And the last meeting I was at, I said, why don't we look at these things more comprehensively? Spend $1 billion to correct safety problems on 301. Keep $1 billion in the transportation fund to do other things. And take $1 billion and build office buildings and factories in southern Maryland and give them away so that the people don't have to commute up. Now, I really didn't mean give it away, but the point was, had we spent money where the jobs could have been created there and they didn't have to commute up 301, we could have saved $1 billion and corrected the problem. And the consultant jumped up and said, that's what we've been trying to tell them. And the guy from transportation said, we can't spend transportation money that way. And that was the end of that. So we really need to look at flexibility within them to do more comprehensive planning than just from the transportation standpoint, because we don't get things done or we spend way too much when there are better solutions. So at some point, we got to put the right kind of group together to look at the revenue sources and how to get more out of the money we have, because we aren't doing that. That's my sermon for the day. Thank you.
Amen. 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 Sarah Ackert.
I just wanted to clarify the funding to be used for the other transit agencies around the state. Matt, is that on page 4 at the bottom of the page? Is that the language? I like to see it.
No, I was going off of the fiscal note. Give me just a minute.
It's section F. I have section F on page 4 of my reprint.
All right.
27 to 31.
Not seeing subject.
You had
That is correct.
Okay, because it says the act may not be construed to limit the authority of the administrator to use available funds appropriated to the administration to increase the state investment in locally operated transit agencies serving urbanized areas in order to facilitate bus replacement consistent with fixed route service or fleet replacement. Is that?
Yet the fiscal note did not take into the account that nuance.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure that so that means that in our rural transit systems.
Are you sure that's the definition? I mean, that's a whole nother story.
Yeah, I just wanted to see if that were.
Cambridge might be urban from that definitional point.
Well, that's what I'm just trying to clarify.
That's a good point.
Because our shore transit program
Yeah.
goes to Kent Island, but it also connects and goes to Ocean City.
Yeah. I understand.
But it's only for fleet. It's only for the vehicles, correct?
That's the way I read it.
That's what it sounds like.
Okay, thank you for that
Senator
clarification.
Kurzban.
Thank you.
Yeah, is there any reason not to correct that? It seems to me, all it says is it gives the MTA the flexibility to help the little guys.
Yeah, I'm a little leery to do that on the fly, and I want to get this moving.
Okay.
Just because we don't, unless if we can clearly get the definitions of what urban means, and
Well, and does it also
think you-
mean that it doesn't limit them from using other monies from other programs to do this, but exclusive of what's in the bill? You know what I mean?
Sen-
It's a
Senator
nice
Craig,
way
what do
of
you
saying,
think?
yeah, you can do it as long as you have some other funds to do it. Thank you. I just thought it would be good to clarify. for you.
I think that it's important to recognize that we're pretty close to this piece of it. I think that, as you stated, just making sure that I guess urban areas and clarifying from that piece of it, but we are on Friday is also what I'm
Yeah,
keeping in
no,
mind.
we gotta move this bill. We can have folks reach out to the administration and see what we can find out about that. Senator Edwards?
If you look in the definition of law, it's not called rural transit, it's called local transit systems.
Okay.
Throughout the state, which basically means rural, but I believe in the law it says local transit system.
Okay. Okay. So we all understand what we got? Matt outlined it a minute ago. We got the House bill posture plus Senator Quarterman. That's pretty much where we are. Okay? Is there a motion? Okay, all those in favor? All right. And those opposed? We got 3. Okay. And, yeah,
I voted no till we find out a little more on the
I
local
understand.
thing, and if that holds okay here, I'll
Yeah,
be
we'll
okay
let
with
you-
it, but just to let you know.
Yeah, we'll change, we can change your vote. Okay.
I did just, we've got one other thing to add.
Oh.
So,
Something else to add. We missed something evidently.
so this is interesting because the bills are designated as cross files, so they should be the same, but the Senate bill must have gotten changed before it was dropped. The House bill, subsection F, reads, "This act may not be construed to limit the authority of the administrator to use available funds appropriated to the administration to increase the state investment in locally operated transit agencies." The Senate bill has the extra strings on it. Now, you could vote to amend this subsection F to just match the House, because it sounds like.
Well, I
it
think
sounds
we
like
already
that's-
did. I think we already did.
All right.
Everybody understand? All right, everybody in favor of the bill as amended, but the House bill, yep. Looks like we got it. Unanimous. Crack staff, our crack staff. Good job, Matt. All right. 413.
413 is the Maryland Legal Services Corporation bill. If you'll recall, the Maryland Legal Services Corporation receives $2 million out of the Abandoned Property Fund each year. This bill would simply increase that $2 million mandate to a $8 million mandate. So it would go up by $6 million.
So, I know I've talked about this before. I don't know how far we need to get into it, but Maryland Legal Services provides legal aid across the state by giving out grants. They have 3 sources of funds. 2 of those sources of funds have dried up effectively over the pandemic, one of which may never come back for a very long time. It has to do with interest rates. And at the moment, they're projecting at least $10 million shortfall in their year-over-year budget. And what you also may have heard or in the media is that there is legislation over in JPR. And I sat down with the chair yesterday. It's about increasing the filing fees for summary ejectment, which is essentially how you go to get someone evicted, for the landlords to pay those fees. Right now, those fees are $15, And there is this bill that the Attorney General put forth to raise that fee to $120. The reason that this is all connected is that one of the jobs that Maryland Legal Services does is represent folks in eviction cases. And so that's the tie. So we sat down to talk about the deficit problem that they have, and they represent people in lots of different ways, not simply in that manner. And then what the JPR is planning to do and trying to figure out a reasonable amount, lowering the bill's fee on that side, which they are going to do, and I'll let them deal with that, what they're going to do. But at the end of the day, we essentially set things up so that we will be able to make up the projected shortfalls for legal services with this bill, plus a proportion of the revenues generated from the increase in fees for the purposes of dealing with evictions. And they haven't acted on that yet. They probably will soon. I have a rough idea what they're looking at, but it should put this organization in a reasonable place. And so with that, even though this isn't enough to actually get them in the right place, from my perspective.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah,
Is this a one-time?
no. No, they've been
But
receiving.
so is it going to be sustainable?
Yes, the Abandoned Property Fund generates money all the time, and the money is transferred to the general fund. It's essentially the general fund in many ways.
Okay.
And they have been drawing that $2 million every year for years, but there's over $100 million usually, Senator Zucker, right? So there's plenty of money there, but like every other decision we make, it is one that affects the overall bottom line. So keeping this at the level that I introduced it at, and supplementing it with the increase in fee. Now, of course, it's got to pass the legislature, and there is some opposition out there to that fee from the landlord community, just to be fair, and we'll hear that, I assume, on the floor should this bill get out of the other bill get out of JPR. But I believe the combination of the two will handle, as we move forward, or do a very good job of handling the eviction issue, as well as putting this back in shape. Okay. All those in favor? Unanimous. Okay. 901.
Senate Bill 901 is a bill that EHE is primary on and this committee is secondary on. This one would create a Maryland resilient revolving loan fund to make loans for resiliency projects at the local level. I believe the bill was discussed earlier this week or last week, and the question came up about whether the treasurer was making a recommendation on how much capital could be used. The capital budget chair provided me a letter from the treasurer's office indicating that $25 million would be appropriate and affordable under the CDAC guidelines. It's not clear to me whether this is intended to be a one-time $25 million capital transfer, because as you recall, the bill has a mandate in it so that the money's $10 million is required each year going forward. I'm not sure if the intent is to increase the mandate from 10 million to 25 million each year, or just do a one-time 25 million.
I think what we can do is if we just have a one-time, So it's really to capture federal dollars at a 90% match from the federal government on this. So if we put this one big chunk in there at 25 million, we're generating a ton of money that will go into the fund and then become the revolving loan fund. Essentially, and this is the choice, and certainly waved to the Senator of the Capitol, the Chair of the Capitol Budget. I think what we can probably do is not even call it a mandate, quite frankly. I think we can just say that we recommend up to $25 million in a one-time, and based on the final outcome of this year's capital budget and the amount of money that we have, we'll try to do what we can do. Does that make sense, Senator Peters?
I think it's important that we set the fund up, and then, you know, we have to think about, so every year, we have a kind of a small number, honestly, for flooding. You know, it's like $7-8 million. There's like 6 or 7 counties that come in for that, and it's not even a piece of what they have to do. And 3 more counties came in this year. So this is a great idea, leverages federal dollars, and we've got the stimulus coming, and we have a lot of flooding problems in this state. We really do. So I agree with you, Mr. Chair. I think that's how we handle it. I think we go with the Treasurer's recommendation of 25, and we let's hope we can get 9 times that much. That would be fantastic.
So, if I'm hearing you correctly, you would like to amend the bill by striking subsection M on bill page 4 and taking out the mandate from the bill. And then the intent would be that in the capital budget, you're going to direct the 25 million towards the fund. Because you don't need to take any action with regard to this year's capital budget here in this bill. You can just direct that money in the capital budget.
That's exactly what I just said.
Okay.
All right, everyone understand that, what we're doing here? This is really good fun. I give Senator Hester a lot of credit. She digs in and she really tries to find the federal connection solutions, and this is a big deal. And so, Senator Eckert?
Would this be one-time monies? They're not relief funds. They would have to be general fund monies.
Well, we're going to use capital dollars.
Or, I mean, it's capital. Okay,
Yeah.
okay.
I mean, and the reality is, I don't even know if we need to specify a number in the bill, because, look, let's say we do this, and next year it's wildly successful, and we see that there's more use for it. I think if we just authorize the use of money for this purpose.
That's what
Okay, yep.
that's the action that was just
Yep.
taken, is we're eliminating any mandate and
That's
any
what he
reference
said,
to number.
yeah. Okay, very good. All right, so with the amendment, all those in favor with the amendment? Okay, very good. One Maryland. That's what we're doing. That's what we're doing every day. Senator Peters, you got that one.
This is an EHE bill, so.
Oh, you don't have that one.
And also,
I'll take that one.
But you
I'll
might
take
have to
that.
back up.
so the other issue is now that the committee has amended it, it would have to go back to EHE
Yeah.
for another vote.
Yep, yep. Get it there quickly.
Okay.
Okay. Maryland Health Equity Resources Act.
So you should have a reprint on your desks. There's a few changes from the reprint you all were going through yesterday. The main structural change is that throughout the bill, these revised amendments have the CHRC being the ones who are going to be administering the new Health Equity Resource Community Program rather than the Secretary of Health. Some other changes.
Let's focus in on that a minute. And I did get some concern expressed by the Hospital Association this morning about that, but here's where I've been sort of struggling with all this. We put $14 million into this program in the Relief Act. We direct the Health Resources Commission to administer that $14 million. We suggest that maybe they look at the 5 entities that already were established out in the world over the years, right? And then, after 2 years, we say, the health department now comes in and they take over everything and they start running with this. And they start doing the grants. And I felt like, and just thinking about the nature of the grants, and I talked to a number of people about this, these grants, many of which will be ones that have provisions in them for extending them when they work. Let's keep working with it. Let's keep making them going. Why we're going to jump in the middle of the stream to the department if we have confidence in the first grantor. And I think, at least from my perspective, I have a lot of confidence in their ability, the Commission's ability to put out grants. I think we may want to, and I don't know how we'll do it on the fly here, but so we've got this advisory committee too, and we expect finance, because this is going back to finance, to adjust the advisory committee. My suggestion is that as they do that, they work in a meaningful role for the department, because the department should be engaged on these matters, no question. But in terms of actually doing the grants and managing the grants, it seems to me jumping from one to another is almost a recipe for problems as we start. So that's kind of how I got to that place. And I'm open to the committee on this. This is really important. I don't know if you remember during the hearing, I said this was probably one of the most important bills that we're going to deal with this year, and I really mean that. And I think it's got an enormous amount of potential. Let me just stop there. Let me say one other thing, because it's been expressed to me as a concern that the money, and we've taken some actions in the subcommittee yesterday to resolve this issue. There's some concern because there's been some pushing and pulling on the funding source for the commission in a normal sense. That money, that their standard $8 million that they have been getting, that they get that, and it is for the normal purposes that they use it for, and that the new money that's come in is specifically for this health equity component, and that they don't touch, that they're not together on this. So we believe we've handled that. We've changed the funding source in the budget for the Resources Commission. And although there'll still be some actions that'll be needed to take in out years, we've found sort of, I think, a good place with the reinsurance money to keep us moving forward, to keep this program moving forward, to make sure that the $14 million that we've initially invested starts to get to work as quickly as possible, and that there is a seamless link in the provision of all these services. So I'm absolutely open for whatever. Yes.
That made sense, Mr. Chairman. What's the argument on the other side? Why wouldn't we do what you just said?
I think some people believe that the health department needs a bigger role.
Why?
I mean, it's the health department.
Okay, I'm with you.
Yep.
Thank
Senator
you.
Eckert?
Chair, the 5 entities, the health enterprise zones from before were a variety of entities.
Yes, they were.
But I mean, the health department can still have a role in that. My understanding of health department is not to grow the health department, but the health department is one of the players, because we've gone out of direct services with the health department years ago. And they're the convener or the overseer for the local jurisdictions and then interface with hospital system and all the other systems. So, yeah, that would make better sense to me on that, and then keep those two pots separate or those two programs separate within the community health resources.
Okay.
And
So
the
you're
board-
agreeing with the,
With the concepts that you presented.
okay,
Because I was just trying to think of, where are there opportunities to build on, as I talked about at length before, but where are there new places to engage, to meet? Where are the bulk of the vulnerable citizens, and how do we reach those folks?
yeah, I mean, there's this advisory committee, it should be advising on those kinds of things, right? And that's an important function. But to me, this seemed like a very strict, the management of a grant, kind of focused.
Yeah, as long as we have, then it's going to be really important to have good geographic representation
Absolutely,
on that advisory board. Thank you.
absolutely. Other thoughts or questions?
Second.
Okay. I mean, I talked about those conceptually. I mean, it's a series of amendments that make all that happen, and I just want everyone to understand,
Yeah, that's the
particularly
main,
Senator Griffith, who's going to be leading this on the floor. Senator Stalling.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just looking at how many people are going to be represented in this group and how I understand every part needs to be represented well throughout the state of Maryland. We don't want to miss anybody. It's very important. I think at the same time, I think it's repetitive in some of the areas that could be.
Yeah,
That's-
I
that
believe,
could
I think it's the intent of the bill sponsor
Yeah.
to make some adjustments and consolidate that.
I'm just reading them, and I'm just thinking, again, we don't want to miss anybody here.
Right.
It's really important that we cover everybody's. But I think at the same time, it's a lot there, and that's my
Yep.
concern. Thank you.
Yeah.
Senator Stalling, the bill includes provisions that allow convening of working groups to bring in varying stakeholders as needed.
Senator Edwards.
Yeah, Phil, where in here you put the geographic,
Yep.
for all, included in one part, I
Hand-
think, but included all the different boards. Where is that in here?
So the change you referenced yesterday, handwritten page 12, up at the top, lines 3 through 5. You see geographic inserted there.
Okay, thank you.
Further questions? Is there a motion?
Favorable.
As amended? Okay, all those in favor as amended. Unanimous. Senator Griffith. Okay, 909.
Senate Bill 909, you don't have a reprint on your desk, but just hot off the presses amendment, but I think I can walk you through that clearly. So what this bill does is basically for capital projects that are in the miscellaneous grant program, or either the Senate or House LBIs, as introduced, if it would receive 500,000 in state funds, then that would trigger a process by which the Governor's Office of Small Minority and Women Business Affairs would review it and establish some MBE goals, particular to that project. In the amendment, the 500,000 would be struck and 3 million would be inserted, raising the threshold before these requirements would come into play. There is a waiver provision from these goals that would be established. On page 3, there is a report that is required, talking about basically reporting on the waiver activity, what was approved, what was requested, things like that. There is a delayed effective date of this bill. It would not be effective for those provisions until July 1, 2022. In the meantime, the Secretary of the Office of Small Minority and Women Business Affairs would work together to establish guidelines for implementing this act. The amendment also would add an additional reporting requirement that says on or before December 1 of 2022, the Office of Small Minority and Women Business Affairs would report to the General Assembly on establishing these sub-goals in accordance with the Act, including whether establishing those goals was practicable based on the type of project, and whether any changes should be made to the Capital Minority Business Enterprise sub-goal framework that's established by this Act. So that is the bill with the proposed amendment.
Senator Griffith.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just wanted to let everyone know this is one of the bills that was recommended by the President's Work Group on Equity and Inclusion, and it forgot what else I was going to say. I see the chair of the Capital Budget's blinking. But basically, the conversation around the bill was that there are about $129 million in projects that currently don't have this minority participation requirement. We passed on the floor yesterday on second reader Senate Bill 649, which creates some support in the Governor's Office on Small Minority Women-Owned Business so that they would be able to implement programs like this. So I'll yield to the chair of the Capital Budget.
Wow. Thank you. So as the bill came in for $500,000 and possibly intersecting with the LBIs, we've got like 1,000 LBIs. The Boys and Girls Club come in, they want $100,000, and I think we did some really good work this year by not having a matching grant. Because what staff has to do, if you have a matching grant, is they have to go call the Boys and Girls Club treasurer, who's probably a volunteer, and has no idea that there's a matching grant or not. So we got rid of the matching grants. We didn't make them bond bills. Now, as you know, the staff doesn't have to do all those bond bills. So I was really pleased talking to the chair, talking to the President Pro Tem about how can we do this, which I think is a good thing, but we have to kind of lift it to another level, because if we got into 1,000 LBIs, then we just kind of reversed everything we just did with the LBIs. So having it at 3 million, 99% of the LBIs are not above, maybe $1 million, $1.5 million. And I do think in terms of some of the projects coming through, I think it's a good idea to take a look at it. And the other thing that we did in response to that report was every grantee now, I'll go back to the Boys and Girls Club, they're going to get a letter when they have to fill their paperwork out to say, we encourage using MBEs, veterans, etc., and that's part of the language that every single one of them is going to get. So we did that as well for the LBIs. So we got the LBIs covered, and now with this bill, we would have any project 3 million above. So I think it's a good bill. I think it's a really good compromise to kind of work through what's achievable and not it into the LBI. So I think the amendment's a good amendment.
Yeah, I think it's important from my perspective to point out that the 3 million is not a magic number. And trying to come up with a number kind of on the fly, not really having a full grasp of all the projects that could be out there and where they come in. And I think the study aspect of this and the future looking of this and it clearly the potential for changing it, maybe bringing the number down lower. But I think it was certainly the intent of the little group that worked on this that we want to really get it going. And that as we sort of have the opportunity over the year or so to really focus in and see the true impacts. And I actually think, and it's my hope, that we may be able to lower this down, the number down. But just a little uncomfortable at this point, not really having a full grasp and at this point. Yes, Senator?
Question. In the work group, did you talk about Maryland MBEs versus just MBEs? Because I just thought that was, okay.
There was a conversation about local or Maryland MBEs. However, for the purposes of this bill, as the chair just stated, felt it was important to get this process started. And once we have data, if we learn that, the MBEs that folks are using aren't, home MBEs, because we don't even really have a sense of the capacity or who's out there to provide the services. So, yeah, but that's a very good point and did come up. And it also came up from some state outside interest as well.
Okay, so you hear the bill, heard the amendments. Is there a motion for the bill as amended?
Favorable.
All those in favor? Unanimous. Yes, sir.
Could I be a co-sponsor on this bill?
Sure. Anybody want to be a co-sponsor?
And also,
Everybody wants to be a co-sponsor.
thank you. I'd also like to be a co-sponsor on Senator Hester's bill, if that's okay. I'm sorry.
Who wants to be a co-sponsor on Senator Hester's bill? Everyone on that too.
Thank you.
Who wants to be a co-sponsor of the Disparity Grant?
Yeah. Go ahead. Senator McRae.
Ned, I apologize for not saying it. Senate Bill 172, I want to jump on as a co-sponsor of that.
One on what?
Yeah, me too.
Which bill? I'm sorry.
Senate Bill 172.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Health equity. Okay, looks like everybody wants to be there too. I love budget and tax. All right, Senator Griffith.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, I wanted to go back. I know we've already passed Senate Bill 909 with amendments, but the chair of the capital budget brought up a good point, and I'm wondering if we want to, either through the reporting requirements or as an amendment to the bill, since it has come up from several different sources, look at local MBEs, if that was the suggestion.
On 909?
909, the capital projects. If we wanted to say
You
Maryland
mean the
MBEs or
resiliency
local.
thing?
No, 909 is
Oh,
the
909,
capital
909.
projects.
I apologize.
Yeah.
What do we want to do?
I think that's a great idea.
Maryland MBEs?
Yeah, just quick story. When I was on the county council for Prince George's, we wrestled with the Gaylord being built and using local MBEs, Maryland MBEs. And the truth is what you said, Senator, was that the local MBEs didn't have the capacity to build the glass that they needed. They didn't have the capacity to do a number of things, but they got together, a number of them, and were able to build capacity. So the capacity issue, in my opinion, is a huge issue in terms of taking on some of these big projects. So yeah, the local MBE and capacity. So I think that's a great amendment.
Any objection to that? Okay.
I have a question, just to clarify.
Yes.
Was the motion to add it to the study that was added by amendment, or to do like encouraging language in the statutory provisions of the bill?
Statutory.
Okay, so something like including, when they set the sub-goals, then they would have to look at including, evaluate either the state MBE or the local MBEs in setting those sub-goals. Okay.
Okay. Okay, Senator Peters, since you lost the other one, you'll have to do this one. Okay. And here you are again, HEROES Act. What bill number is that? Anybody know? What is it?
Senator Peters' bill?
Yeah,
The military and hometown heroes, 370.
370?
370.
Okay, just really as a opening on this and the tax issue that we've been dealing with. So the three bills that are on the calendar as special ordered for today that we've been pushing off, I think we're going to move those. So if that comes up today, floor leaders on those three bills know that you are going to take it this time. I'm not going to get up and delay it anymore. We don't have, at least at this point, to my knowledge, a written description of the changes made. We have a Treasury Department spokesperson who's made comments. But I think what we're going to do is start moving a few of these. The worst thing that can happen is that, I probably won't move a whole lot of them, but the worst thing that could happen is that they just get stuck in each of the opposing houses. Could be, yeah, right. Well, it could be that otherwise. So that's sort of the framework that we're living in right now. Okay? 370.
370, this is a bill that deals with the subtraction modification for military and the hometown heroes retirement income. It's identical to legislation you all passed last year. What it does is it aligns the hometown heroes with the way the military benefit works. So there's a 20,000 freestanding modification, and then there's the normal retirement subtraction modification. Hometown heroes doesn't have the freestanding, it's all under the subtraction modification, so it's subject to the Social Security offset. So what the bill does is over a couple of years, it phases in the transition. So the bill may look a little strange in that in some parts it seems to be reducing the hometown heroes existing subtraction, but the reason for that is that it's also enhancing by creating that standalone subtraction. So after the phase-in is complete, they'll both be in alignment. At age 55, they'll be able to claim $20,000, and then when they're 65, everything works under, anything else works under the existing subtraction modification. There's also clarification aligning the hometown heroes so that you can't double dip the same as the military.
Can you poke Jim?
We should have elevator music when that happens. Sorry about that. Senator Peters.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just as a refresher, when I came here to the Senate, the veterans had $5,000. We moved it to 10. Now it's at 15. The 10 and 15 are for 65 and older. The first 5 is for any veteran. This is 65 and older in order to make the fiscal note lower. So this would move the vets from 15 to 20. It would also fix the firefighters issue where they get penalized if they get Social Security and they get their pension, they get it subtracted. So now they get exactly what the military gets. They move in tandem with the military from 15 to 20, because the problem we had was that the firefighters were fighting with the veterans, and they each had their own separate bills, so they're all together. So this would give $20,000 to everybody, and it would fix the firefighters' bill. And the fiscal note's about $5.9 million, and the governor put in the budget $26 million. So we'd be doing it for a lot less. We'd be able to take a cut, but this is all the groups are supportive of the bill. So it's a kind of a winner all the way around. But thanks, Mr. Chairman, for bringing this bill up, because I think that would resolve a lot of issues with the groups. Thanks.
Questions? Senator Solling?
No, I appreciate Senator Peters presenting this good bill. I think it's a compromise that I think it's more workable, and I'd like, if I had the opportunity to be a co-sponsor of this bill and move favorable, Mr. President. Oh, Mr. President, yeah, Mr. Chairman.
That didn't quite happen. Anybody else want to be a co-sponsor?
Is that everybody?
That's everybody. We are being awfully agreeable this morning. I love it. I love it. All right. So as amended now, all those in favor? Unanimous. Okay. I think we are going to pull a couple more. We have the R&D tax credit because it expires, I think, right?
Yeah, that is Senate Bill 196. And this bill does a couple of things with the R&D tax credit. Firstly, it extends the sunset. It was set to expire, as this would be the last year.
This is an administration bill, right?
It is indeed a departmental bill.
Okay.
Yep. So it extends the sunset through 2025. The current credit has both a basic research and a growth research. This bill eliminates the basic research and puts all of the money into the growth research. It keeps the total appropriation of $12 million the same. It's just shifting it all to the growth. It does have a carve out for $3.5 million for small businesses. If not all of that is allocated, then any remaining would go back to the larger pot for anybody. Let's see. It maintains it establishes an applicant limit of $250,000, and it maintains the carry forward of 7 years, and it is refundable for small businesses. So that is the bill. No one raised any amendments. That's it.
All right. Thoughts?
Favorable.
Second.
All those in favor? Very good. Senator King, you got it. All right. Let's see. Just for staff's sake, we had SB 841. We can send that to the floor. We already voted that. 841.
Oh, I don't
You have it.
I mean, I don't know if we're talking about that.
No, well, we're going to move that. You can put it on the floor now.
Oh, okay.
This is what I'm saying.
Oh, okay.
Yep. Who has possession of 902? It's a cyber bill by Hester.
Likely EHE, but let me verify.
Do we have a role in that?
802 or 902?
902.
We are secondary.
We are secondary?
Yep.
Is there a note? Is that,
It says the note, well, it establishes a program. The note says that special revenues for the Cyber Workforce Fund, which I guess this bill creates, increases potentially by 25 million or more to the extent that federal or other funds become available. Special fund expenditures also increase to administer the program and provide this financial support that I guess the bill establishes. Part of the funding can be, 10% of it can be used to administrate the program. So that's what the front page of the fiscal note says.
I apologize. What was the bottom line number?
No number was given, well, 25 million.
How much?
25,
Million?
yep. In revenues going into the fund, and then it depends on grant activity.
How is it going in? I apologize.
I don't know, sorry,
I'm trying
I
to do
haven't-
too many things.
Yeah, I haven't looked through the bill yet.
Okay. So it's possible, so since this needs a little looking at, and there may be a couple more. We can, obviously, we don't know exactly what the schedule is today. We don't know if we're going to be in tomorrow. But we may, if we're in tomorrow, we probably won't do any more voting tonight, although maybe. And it'll be very brief.
Do we have a lot left?
No, it'll be very brief. And obviously, this is, we got time. It's not like not making crossover is the end of the world. It just makes it easier. So we'll look at a couple. So after we get through decisions tonight on the budget, and based on some timing issues overall with the floor actions, we'll decide whether or not we're going to take up a couple bills, and literally be a couple. Senator?
I know some we were looking at, but if it's possible, just to look at and just see if it's a possibility for Senate Bill 904.
904,
Yes, sir.
and that's in our possession.
Yes.
Okay. Now, I also want to look at, I think it's 467 or 469. One of those will make sense when you see it. Okay. Does anybody else have any that we should look at or have staff look at just prior to?
Either of those numbers.
Yeah, wouldn't hurt to run them back right at this moment if you really want to get it
QPR.
over on crossover. And just let the staff know. Okay? All right, we have a hearing in 25 minutes. And away we go. And then we got floor at 11, I think. Yeah.
Lord 11.
Okay? Talk among yourselves.